Ever wondered how to stay ahead of the 2024 travel trends? But hear me out. In order to make sure that your property, your rental property, is the number one choice for midterm rental guests like digital nomads, well, in today's episode, we are diving deep into the world of innovative travel solutions with none other than foremost expert in the space, Maddie Rifkin. Hello, hello. My name is Dr. Rachel Gainsbrugh, and I am obsessed with all things short-term rentals, revenue streams, and helping you navigate your career, real estate, and your busiest and most wonderful seasons of life. So grab your coffee, get comfortable as you get ready to learn and grow with me. This is the Luxury Rental Doctor Podcast. Hello, friends. This season, we are changing things up a bit and bringing you our exclusive content from the recent Luxury Midterm Rental Wealth Retreat. In this episode, I'm so thrilled to have Maddie Rifkin, which is the visionary founder and CEO of Mount, which is a company that really caters to a new way of traveling by providing both unique and immersive experiences for guests. Now, Maddie's been an entrepreneur since the age of 12, guys. And so she essentially transformed her initial business idea into one that supports a nomadic lifestyle for midterm rental guests. So let's dive into the world of innovative experiences and discover how to build some wealth together by adding on extra upsells to properties that you already have. So thank you for joining us today, and let's get started.
Thanks, Ruben. Nice. Clicker, cool. Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2, and I'm going to be giving kind of a different perspective to the short-term rental, midterm rental accommodation provider realm, partly because I'm a nomadic traveler. That's what Mount actually caters to, is these travelers, this new age of travel, where you're remote working, you're traveling at the same time, and honestly, life is changing. People want more out of it faster, and so they're asking more out of their travel. So that's kind of what I'll be talking about today. Cool. But first, I wanted to give you a little overview of who I am. Some of you have heard this because I've been here yesterday, so if you've heard it, apologies. But basically who I am, I'm the founder and CEO of Mount. And I've been doing this since I was 12 years old, so it's been a journey. I'm now 25, so just about 12, 13 years in the process and making. But Mount started as a company called Mount Locks, and it was a bike lock company, and that's what I was building when I was that age. There's a photo of me. That's me winning that competition. I won a patent. So my school, when I was in 5th grade, had an extracurricular activity where you got to come and build whatever you wanted. I built a bike lock. And at the end of the school year, you got to go and pitch to these judges, I guess business people of Colorado. That's where I grew up. And I, as a 12-year-old, basically stood on a stage like this and pitched my business idea with the lock I had built with the help of some faculty and teachers. And I won. I won a patent, a fully funded patent. I got to work with a lawyer for the next few years. And then the US government actually granted me that patent when I was 15. So a really fun journey. And that was kind of the turning point where I was like, let's do this. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a CEO. Had no clue what that meant, but I was going to figure it out along the way. So I ended up at Northeastern University. I studied entrepreneurship, to no surprise of anyone. And I founded Mount Locks, so it became a real company. And my freshman year, I made a lot of mistakes, but a lot of good ones along the way as well. We went from a bike lock company to a scooter lock company. I ended up working with Bird and Lime. So I actually flew to California when they popped up in Santa Monica, for anyone living in California. They basically just decided to put scooters on the street and see what happened. They caused a lot of chaos. Still, honestly, a lot of chaos to this day with scooters. But I thought if they're putting scooters on the streets, they might need a lock. And our lock actually happened to work perfectly with scooters. So I showed up at their office, happened to be in garages. They were like 2 5-person companies. And I was like, hey, I think you're gonna need this. They're like, who the hell are you? I'm like, oh, I'm Maddie, I'm from Boston. So it was a great journey. For the next 2 years, I worked alongside those companies. I saw them become billion-dollar companies. They went from 2 employees to thousands, scooters around the world. And I helped with the locking infrastructure. I worked with city governments on how to impose these locks, San Francisco actually being a big one. And then I got to see it all come crumbling down because of COVID. And what I had built, we had a supply chain in China. We took the lock through stages of prototyping, and I got to see it all come crashing down because COVID hit that industry really hard, also hit the short-term rental industry really hard, and no one wanted locks anymore. So where I ended up, and that's actually how I found myself in this industry, was everyone riding scooters happened to be tourists, but they didn't promote it that way. They promoted it as a commuting tool, but I knew that secret. So what I did, I had 30 scooters left, and during the middle of the pandemic, I drove around Colorado in my car, and I dropped the scooters at Airbnb properties. I asked for permission though, they totally knew I was doing it. It was not out of the blue. And what I found out was that these tourists, these travelers staying at these Airbnb properties, very much valued having these scooters. Partly because of the pandemic, they didn't want to go get on a random gross one, the germs, and they had this for their entire stay. And what it did was it gave this traveler a new outlook on this property, gave them an experience and a new way of exploring town. So they left a great review, and Mount kind of facilitated it all. But I didn't really like that business model because I was the operator of the scooters, and that was terrifying because I was like, someone's gonna hurt themselves, somehow gonna end up on me. And I was like, that's just not the proper solution. What it turned out to be was these travelers wanted more out of their stay. They wanted experiences, they wanted to live like a local, and they would typically ask their host, what should I do and where should I go? And they would get the local recommendations, and it spurred this new way of thinking. How can I enable these property managers, these hosts, your accommodation providers, to offer more to your guests? And that's what Mount became. I actually spent a year of nomadic traveling after I graduated because it was, again, still the pandemic, didn't quite know where I wanted to live, and I'd gotten into a startup accelerator program. So I actually went to Hawaii, 3 months. They flew me out there. It was a program ran by Tetris, that old-fashioned game. They actually do still make a ton of money. And I got to work on Mount. And so I was like, okay, if we're building this for nomadic travelers, I'm gonna live like one. So I brought just a duffel bag. I actually stayed in a midterm rental. I stayed there for 3 months, right in the middle of a community. It was great. And I got to experience what I was building. And while I was there, I actually learned a lot. I actually got to experience that travel is changing. So this is what has been happening because tourism is still exploding, but people are overcrowding areas. Tourism actually is very not sustainable. Tourists produce twice as much waste as a local when you're traveling. And there's just not proper land and ecosystem set up for tourism these days, especially when they're going to new places. Accommodations are popping up in residential areas, not built for tourism, and it's causing this whole bottleneck of waste and not sustainable practices. So that was the first thing I learned. Second thing I learned is that we want more when we travel. So when I was in Hawaii, I wanted to snorkel, boogie board, go hiking, scuba diving, the full works. I had none of that stuff. So I had to ask my midterm rental person, I was like, where can I rent this? I didn't want to buy it, and just had to figure out my way. So that's what I mean when travelers want more than just a place to stay. They're looking for more out of your property, more out of the local area, and that's what Mount's setting up. To the tune of the way travelers are booking these days, it's completely flipped 180. People in the olden days used to find their accommodation. That would mean their destination, then their flights. Then they'd figure out what they want to do. Nowadays, and actually, who has a bucket list out there? Maybe it's in your phone, your brain, of things you want to do. Maybe the Northern Lights is on it. Yeah. So that's how travel is changing. It's like, what do I want to do? Find a place, a destination that fits that, and then find the accommodation. So great example of this, I traveled to Iceland last year. Not because Iceland was on my bucket list, but the Northern Lights was. And I was in New York, so I was like, well, Iceland's not that far, and it's also pretty cool. So let's hop that 4-hour flight. So I checked off Northern Lights, found Iceland. Then I went on Airbnb, and I looked up all the properties that were advertising, you can see the Northern Lights from my house. And I booked those. I booked 3 or 4 of them, and I just bopped from place to place just to play my odds. Good thing I did that because they actually don't tell you. The Northern Lights are not really visible by naked eye unless it's a really, really strong aurora. You see them through the camera. I didn't know that until the last day, so. I did get to see them though, so bucket list item crossed off. But again, just a really good real-life example of how travel is changing, and we need to capitalize on that. So these are some stats to really drive it home. And Rachel actually mentioned this yesterday, but travelers are paying for things when they travel. 83% of travelers actively seeking out and paying for experiences, tours, restaurants, you name it, they want that experience because they want the memorable vacation. That's what they remember. But less than 10% of accommodation providers, you guys host, property managers, provide bookable experiences and things that your guests can actually do. You might give a word of mouth recommendation, but it stops there. And it's a bit of a cumbersome process. So what that looks like is there's $9.2 billion just on this table of that's how much people are spending on this stuff that you guys really don't access right now, right? So that's why I'm here today is like, let's get you access to this money and let's see how we can elevate the guest experience. So this is where you might want to start taking notes. You'll probably get these slides though too. These are some recommendations on steps you can take today, whether you have a property or not, to set yourself up for success. We're going to look at how to know your guests. So actually taking your guest avatar and really 10xing that. What does that actually mean and how are you going to implement it? We're going to actually put together some experiences based on your guest avatar. And then I'm going to give you a software to automate it because we work smarter, not harder. No extra work in this room, especially for me. So when it comes to knowing your guest, this is kind of basic guest avatar stuff, but you want to look at your average age. You might have guest data on this already, or if you don't have a property yet, you're going to target someone in that average age range. So figure out what that is. Then look at group size. Are they coming with a significant other? Is it a 1-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 8-bedroom? Who is coming? Are they coming as a family with young children? Are they coming as a bachelorette group, so they're all friends? And then why are they traveling? Actually, question for all of you. Do you get the question from your guests, what should I be doing and where should I be going? Or along those veins? That's data you should be using to figure out what to offer them. And you can actually reverse it too. If you want them to ask you what I should be doing and where I should be going, figure out how you're going to market your property. And maybe that is as a Northern Lights Iceland hostel. You never know. So that's the first step. Now, once you know that, once you've put that together, you're going to start looking at your local environment, your local market, the local businesses, what you could potentially offer at your property even. And you're going to start putting together some experiences. That could be adventure experiences. So that could be the Northern Lights and partnering with a company that'll take your guests on a 4-hour adventure through the wilderness. That could be a hot air balloon experience in Phoenix, run by a retired airline pilot. Sky's the limit on that one. And then also it could be as simple as putting a golf cart at your property. Maybe you're a golf cart community and your guest wants to have that when they're at your property. The other thing you should look at is where your property is located. Are you a mile from town, 5 miles? Where's the nearest place your guests are going to be going? And set that up for success, especially if you're a midterm rental. Your guests might not come with a car, but they might want to bike while they're there. These things they're not really able to travel with. Potentially equipping your property with these things because that's why you're going to get booked if you have these extra amenities. So that's step 2. Now we have step 3, which is software automation, and this is quite important because you don't want to be the person that's contracting with all these local businesses, giving pen and paper contracts, and then you're stuck as the middleman. When your guest wants to book something, you have to call that vendor, be like, hey, can I book this? You're essentially becoming concierge. You don't want to do that. So this is how you automate it. You look at a software that can collect payments. That's a huge one because you don't want to be chasing your guests for cash or Venmo or Airbnb charging. It's a nightmare. And then also, online booking and fulfillment. Right now, there are some companies out there, like Viator is a great example. They'll give you a link and your guest can book it. And that's automation, so that's good. And then marketing. How are you going to market this? What's going to set your property apart? And you need a software that does all 3. So that's kind of why I'm here. This kind of came full circle. Mount basically built the entire software product to do all of this. So we contract with all the local vendors. We build the contracts, the relationships. We do all of that heavy lifting. We bring them online too. So if they're a pen and paper vendor, they can use our software to become bookable. So they get inventory management, they get online booking websites, all through Mount. And then we connect them to you guys because these are local hidden gems that travelers want, and they're looking at you as the trusted local. So if you're able to give them these recommendations, the shot of booking just goes way up. So actually, this is why it's different than Viator, TripAdvisor, Get Your Guide. A lot of travelers these days don't trust those websites. It's why we don't use Yelp anymore either, because their reviews went to the bots. And now you can't trust those reviews because it's just they're paying money for good reviews. And so you're trying to find these local hidden gems, and that's where you guys come in, because you're the trusted locals. Even if you're not, you still are looked at as that way. So we put it all together into this white labeled website, which actually you can kind of see there. It's white labeled to your property, your brand, your market, and that's how you pull in all the local vendors. It's a dynamic list, so your guests can see it, click book. It'll take them to the vendor's booking site. And then they're in contact with the vendor. So you're out of the picture. You don't have to answer customer service, nothing like that. They'll ask the vendor. They pay for it. Mount tracks all the revenue. And at the end of the month, you guys get a check or a direct deposit with all the money made. So it's a seamless process. You just have to set it up once, and then you're rolling. And why this is so great, just in general, not just Mount, I'm not really here to sell you, but it's the direct booking movement. So if you guys aren't aware, you should be. Direct booking is where the future is going, especially with travelers. I think they're awake to the fees, and they don't want to pay those anymore. So if you're a savvy traveler, you actually find the property on Airbnb, and then you'll find the name of the property manager or the host or whoever it is, and then go find the direct booking website because you save a lot of money. So that's very common. So actually, Airbnb is a great Google type of resource, and then they'll find you other places. But you need a direct booking website set up to do this. I have Boostly on here because they are a fantastic direct booking website partner. They'll set one up for you very easily. And then what you can do on your direct booking website is you can create an experience tab, and you can list all of your experiences you're offering on your direct booking website, on your actual listing too. It can get that granular. And then when someone's Googling, I want to see the Northern Lights in Iceland, your property is actually going to pop up. So you've just put yourself in that whole booking flow of how they find what to do. They're going to find your accommodation at the same time. So you've just game changed the whole way people are booking now. You've hacked it together, and you've put yourself at the front. And you've just elevated yourself against all the competition, because not everyone is doing this. That's why you guys are here, to get all the secrets. So I would say massive game changer, and the industry is definitely moving this way. Airbnb feels it. Brian Chesky, the founder, is quite scared of direct booking, but I think it's here to stay. So unless he reduces his fees, you never know. And then also offer for you guys. I'm here. I want to chat with all of you. So I'd say experiences vary per property and per market and per all of you. If you want a free consultation, I have a whole list. We work with 40,000 local vendors. So I can tell you who's in your area, who you should get set up with. If we don't have anyone in your area, we can get local vendors set up, and then you get more free Mount software. And on this trip, you do get 1 month free if you sign up here. So might be worth it. And that's the QR code if you wanted to do that. That's all my contact information too. Happy to chat about really anything. I come to a lot of these conferences, talk to a lot of vendors. If you want the behind the scenes scoop, happy to chat. Yeah.
So I know you said it's a white label. So like when, like let's say they don't do a direct book or they're going through Airbnb, is this like inside of the listing?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so your page gets a unique URL. So whatever your company name is, it would probably be that .experiences. And then that URL you should embed pretty much everywhere. So we recommend in your automated messaging to your guests. And then also we have a lot of data. We like to think travelers are pre-planners, even when they're booking the way they do, where it's like experience first. They still will not book their actual experience until 72 hours of the window of consumption. Sometimes day of, like I am very guilty of this. When it comes to marketing your experiences, we actually recommend you send them a very high-touch automated message the night of arrival. They're all settled in, they know how to get into your property, the alarm is off. And now they're thinking, okay, what should we do while we're here? That's the perfect time to hit them with what you've put together. So we like to say at Mount, we're turning you into marketers, essentially, of here's how you really tailor yourself to your guests, make sure they have that memorable experience. And then also with direct booking, they'll probably come back just because they're gonna remember the experience you gave them.
What has been the percentage of impact with your software added to a booking opposed to one without it?
We like to quantify it in a few ways. Obviously, you have the revenue. You get about 5 to 10% of each booking. So you do get that bump, but really where we see a lot of the return on investment is the way you're able to differentiate your property in your listing. And so you see a lot more 5-star reviews that are mentioning this concierge type service you're offering. More occupancy because people are finding your property more. You're essentially hacking the Airbnb algorithm. Yeah, I would say that's a top value. And then a lot of the revenue that Mount generates, your website generates essentially, is paying for the software fee. Yeah. Yeah.
For the local experiences, like if it's not on a list, what's that process to get them added?
So right now, you just send us a list of all the local vendors. We'll go vet them, see what type of software they're using, if any, and then we'll send them a link to get set up with Mount. And we just, if you know them, we just like you to give them a little heads up, like, hey, we want you working with Mount so our guests can book you. The vendors are pretty receptive just because they look at Mount as a new marketing channel because they haven't been able to get access to these guests, and now they can. Yeah.
So I was going to ask if, so like you said, digital nomads also can use that and remote workers. I had an experience where we were in Florida and I needed a desk and they didn't have one in our Airbnb. So do you offer that kind of like, okay, the desk or like certain lighting, that type of thing that if someone needed it, they would just sort of do that?
Yes, so that's a great question. Actually, you guys are getting a sneak peek into what we're building here at Mount. This is why the journey, I think, is so important. At Mount, we're on a mission. We basically say we're on a mission to change the way you travel. So we want everyone going with just a backpack and then renting everything they need in destination. So we actually have a lot of locals who list stuff on Mount. Desks, monitors, cars, or not cars, sorry, excuse me, we don't do cars. That would be really scary. Bikes, scooters, all the full works of all that stuff. So that if you do go somewhere and your host has experiences, you can actually pull in other stuff from the marketplace, like private chefs, masseuses. And actually, I didn't even touch on this, but for the midterm rental sector too, you still want to offer these type of experiences, but they're different. Like we actually have someone who just set up their local gym, and now their midterm rental guests can purchase month-long gym passes. Yeah, so that one's really good. And same for like resorts too. Your guests could buy a resort day pass and go to the hotel and use the pool and services. Yeah.
And is that for all your listings, or is it you have to pay just for one fee for all your listings?
Like for you, for example?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have multiple listings and even in different locations, is it just still one fee?
Yeah, the base is $45 a month, and you get your page. And we like to say it's one page per market, and then use it at all your properties. And then for every additional market you bring on, I think it's an extra $5 to $10 a month. Yeah.
So there's a base level, and so it's tiers to the package?
It tiers, yeah, exactly.
So what's the bottom tier you would offer me opposed to the top tier?
Bottom tier is $45 a month.
And what does that entail opposed to what's the highest level tier?
The bottom one just gets you the whole landing page for one market. So let's say you have 2 properties in Orlando. This would be that base level. Use it at the 2 properties. Even if you had 50, you could use it all at all 50. And then if you add on another market, say Denver, that's just an extra $10 a month.
Okay. So it's not a tier where you're getting different things?
No, yeah. It's just because you need different pages per market.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We were talking a little bit yesterday about Viator.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what makes your brand different from Viator and like the host code? Because I have a host code store also, and I like what you had said about you can add this like your direct booking website and other things also. Can you just kind of talk about some of the differences between like you and Viator and then you and the host code?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. So at Mount, I tell you guys that we're building traveler first. Like that's who the Mount team is. We're all nomadic travelers. And I think that's what really sets us apart is we're building what we want essentially, and then giving you the tools to offer it. And so because we are that type of brand, I think that sets us apart from a lot of other competitors in that we have a traveler network we've put together. It's over 250,000 travelers, nomadic, solo, female founder, or female solo travelers. And they're all in this network because they like what we're building. And so that's really what you guys get tapped into is once you're a Mount host, we start shuffling travelers towards your properties because they're looking for what you guys are setting up. And I think that's what is really going to game change and set us apart is we're bringing these 3 communities together, all under the same premise of responsible travel, authentic travel, all of those type of situations. Yeah, and then I think Viator is a great example of a brand that just went for the money. I mean, they're VC backed, so it makes sense, but I think they got a little too big and let too many non-local type of vendors set up shop on their website. And so travelers now know if I go to Viator, I might not get an authentic experience. And so we really keep it local to the hidden gems and bring in the community. Yeah.
So just to go back over that, so like the avatar setup for this is really like nomadic travelers, so like more of like people that are like professional, like corporate that don't really want to do like those things. Is there like vendors specific that cater to them as well?
Yeah, and it just depends. For the more professional type traveler who's coming for work or maybe just like needs to root themselves for a few months, that's I think when you'd get into the services more like the gym pass, the more lifestyle stuff that they need, but they're not traveling with.
When someone kind of joins, is it up to you to define what the experiences are for your local market that's tailored to your custom avatar? So is it on that host to try to pick out, I want more of a gym pass, I want more of those versus I want to go snorkeling, things like that. So like how does that initial setup work to now where you have experiences on your page that are targeted to your custom avatar?
I'd say it's definitely collaborative, and some people know their avatar a lot more than others because everyone's in the journey kind of at different stages. And so you can work with us just because we do know the traveler quite well at this point. And so let us know who you want to target, and we'll tell you the best experiences we have in that area. And then we have hosts that want to take it all on themselves. Like they are a true local. They've been there 20 years, and they're like, I know Tim down the street. He's not set up, but he's the best bike vendor, and they just want to get their own market going.
Just to confirm, you said that for those locals, say, let's say you look in any area and you don't have experiences there, it's also on the host to try to go form those relationships to bring them on board?
Yes, that would be the case. And we have found there are a lot of hosts that do have those relationships. Like they have their Rolodex of who they send guests to, and it's just a matter of bringing them online. Yeah.
So if you did have a tour business, you could add it.
Yeah, we actually have a host actually just got set up in Utah. He has 160 properties here and has 80 Turo cars. So yeah, he listed his Turo link in this mini marketplace as an extra advertising channel. Yeah.
Question, I wasn't sure if I heard earlier, but at some point, if there's enough people that knows your company, would people be driven to your company and say, hey, I'm looking for Shenandoah property, tubing in Front Royal, then you can pretty much say, hey, Harry has an Airbnb in Shenandoah. Is that sort of like the mindset, kind of where it's going?
Yeah, and that should hopefully be launching early next year. Not that we'd ever become an OTA, I don't really want to do that, but we would link to your direct booking website so we can shuffle travelers there. Well, thank you.
Give it up for
Thank you.